Hey there, folks! If you want to dive deeper into the mysteries of ancient Egypt with us, go ahead and follow our channel so you don't miss this or any future videos. And it really helps us out if you support us by subscribing, liking and leaving a comment below. Thanks a lot! So, what's really under Nefertiti's face? It might actually rewrite history. For over 3,000 years, the golden mask of Pharaoh Tutankhamun stayed hidden in Egypt's Valley of the Kings. This artifact, about 21 inches tall, shows just how skilled and artistic the ancient Egyptians were. But no one ever expected that X-rays would reveal one of its biggest secrets. Tutankhamun was the last ruler of his royal family during the 18th dynasty. He became king at just 9 years old and ruled for only 10 years before dying unexpectedly. Honestly, in ancient Egypt he was mostly forgotten by the rulers who came after him. His tomb wasn't seen as very important, so much so that even tomb robbers didn't bother with it. That might sound sad, but in a way it was a blessing. Since his tomb was pretty much forgotten, it was left completely untouched while many others in the Valley of the Kings were looted. His mummy remained sealed and untouched, so when it was finally discovered in 1922, it contained more than 5,000 priceless items, making Tutankhamun an instant celebrity and one of the most famous pharaohs of all time. Among all those treasures, the most stunning piece was his golden burial mask. It's said to be an accurate image of the young king, or at least it was meant to be. The idea was to make sure his soul could recognize him in the afterlife and return to his mummified body, according to ancient Egyptian beliefs. That way he could continue living in the next world. The mask's details are incredibly precise, and while people always knew it was well crafted, no one realized just how complex it really was until years later. The first X-ray of the mask was taken in 1967. At the time, they did it mainly for preservation. It was heading to Paris for an exhibition, and the scans were meant to track any changes during the trip. The scans also gave clues about how the mask was made, though no one fully grasped its complexity just yet. After all, Egyptian goldsmiths didn't have modern welding tools, so how did they manage to make something so intricate? Later X-rays, taken in 2007, finally gave us some answers. Turns out, the mask wasn't made of pure 24-karat gold. It was made of 23-karat gold, mixed with a tiny bit of copper. That bit of copper made the gold more flexible and easier to shape. They likely hammered and heated the sheets over and over again to mold the mask into shape. But that's not the only secret the mask held. In 2015, just a year before museum staff in Cairo were preparing to display the mask, something unexpected happened. The mask's long beard accidentally fell off. Some say it became loose over time and simply dropped off. Either way, it caused a huge stir. After all, we're talking about one of Egypt's biggest tourist attractions. Experts rushed to fix it. As part of the restoration, they did a full three-dimensional scan of the mask. And that's when they found something fascinating, a small golden tube inside the beard. It seems the ancient Egyptians used this to attach the beard to the mask, proving once again how advanced and thoughtful their craftsmanship was. But here's where it gets even more mysterious. Remember how the mask was said to be a perfect likeness of King Tut? Well, that may not be entirely true. Some researchers now believe the mask wasn't originally made for Tutankhamun at all. A study, published in 2015, suggested that it was first made for someone else, a female pharaoh, possibly his stepmother, the famous Queen Nefertiti. The biggest clue? An inscription on the mask. At first glance, it clearly seems to name Tutankhamun, but experts noticed that something had been scratched out and replaced. Underneath his name, they believe the original inscription referred to Queen Nefertiti. That means the mask may have been repurposed for Tut after her death, or maybe after a sudden change in plans. There's another detail experts ignored for years: the pierced ears on the mask. Some researchers believe Tutankhamun stopped wearing earrings when he was older, so by the time he died at 18, he wouldn't have been depicted with pierced ears, adding to the theory that the mask was made for someone else, maybe Nefertiti, or someone unrelated to him entirely. And the mysteries don't stop there. Even his tomb is full of questions. Historians recently found signs that suggest the spot where Tutankhamun was buried wasn't originally meant for him. For years, experts wondered why a king, even a young one, was laid to rest in such a small and modest tomb, especially compared to the grand burial sites of other pharaohs. It just didn't match the power and status he should have had. So what happened? Well, one theory points to his successor, the pharaoh who ruled right after Tut died. Some researchers believe he tried to erase Tut from history. This may explain why the young king was hastily buried in a smaller tomb, while the grander one was saved for the new ruler. When experts examined the successor's tomb, they found something strange: a wall covered with baboon paintings, the exact same style of artwork seen in Tutankhamun's tomb. That suggests the same person oversaw the decoration of both tombs. But here's the kicker. The other tomb is way bigger and more impressive, clearly fit for a king. So it seems like Tut's original tomb wasn't ready when he died unexpectedly, and the successor decided to take the big one for himself, leaving Tut with the smaller one. Experts believe that explains why Tutankhamun's tomb is so simple, and why he was so easily forgotten afterward. But in the end, Tut's story, his tomb and his mask are all packed with mystery and wonder. Every new discovery sheds more light on what really happened thousands of years ago. And if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that ancient Egypt still has many secrets left to reveal. Even today, the word mummy might give you chills. Most people think of scary movie monsters when they hear it, but mummies actually help us understand ancient cultures, their rulers, and how people dealt with loss and death. The Egyptians are by far the most famous when it comes to mummification. They believed in an afterlife, but only if certain things were done properly. That's why they went to such lengths to preserve the body through mummification, and why they buried the dead in tombs filled with everything they'd need. Basically, like giving them a fully furnished apartment for eternity. Why did they believe in all this? Because they were deeply connected to nature. They saw daily cycles, like how the sun rises and sets, or how plants grow back after dying, and believed those same patterns applied to human life. They even believed in a god named Osiris, who represented the cycle of death and rebirth. To prepare for the afterlife, Egyptians followed strict rituals using resins, incense and other materials during mummification to preserve the body. And when it comes to famous mummies, none beats King Tut. Tutankhamun ruled Egypt over 3,000 years ago. The problem with discovering royal tombs is that most had already been looted. People knew pharaohs were buried with treasure, so they broke in and stole whatever they could. That's why the discovery of Tut's tomb in 1922 was so exciting. It was one of the few untouched tombs. That's how well it had been hidden. Inside, his mummy was wrapped in 3 golden coffins, surrounded by artifacts that taught us so much about ancient Egypt. Studying his body also helped us learn about the culture and even his health. Thanks to DNA tests, scientists found that Tutankhamun had malaria and a foot deformity that may have made it hard for him to walk. And he wasn't the only ruler with a long legacy. Pharaoh Ramesses II ruled Egypt for 68 years, an incredibly long reign by any standard. Ramesses, the second life, death, and the secrets of ancient mummification. Ramesses II was known for his military campaigns and ambitious construction projects. In fact, many things from his time are still standing today, like his massive statues. He was around 6 feet tall and lived to be about 90 years old, which is pretty remarkable for that time. After studying his mummy, scientists believe he may have had a spinal condition that affected his back. And remember those tomb robbers we mentioned earlier? They're likely the reason Ramesses II ended up in a simple coffin hidden in a secret cache of royal mummies at el-Bahari. That hidden group of mummies was rediscovered in 1881. Thankfully, archaeologists were able to identify him because the wrappings on his body recorded his name and travels. But the process of mummifying someone like Ramesses was incredibly complex. In ancient Egypt, mummification could take up to 70 days to complete. A special person would recite very specific prayers during the entire process, carefully treating the body and drying it out using a natural salt called natron. Then they'd wrap it in linen and resin to make it look lifelike. The tomb itself was just as important as the body. For example, the walls of Tutankhamun's tomb were covered in intricate art showing his journey to the afterlife, from his funeral procession to his passage through the underworld. The ancient Egyptians believed that everyone would take this spiritual journey after death, so they filled their tombs with helpful items and detailed paintings to guide them along the way. They even decorated the tomb walls with spells taken from a sacred book, a collection of ancient poems meant to help the dead reach the afterlife safely. That's how important this journey was to them. People even left food behind. In Tutankhamun's tomb, archaeologists found 36 jars of old drinks and baskets of dried fruit, all placed there to help him survive the long journey to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed it could take quite a while to reach the next world, so they stocked the tombs with everything: food, water, clothes, and tools to support their loved ones. Pharaohs were also buried with luxurious clothing and beautiful jewelry to make sure they travelled in style. These items included fancy linen outfits like scarves, gloves and head coverings, as well as golden jewellery set with precious stones, things like bracelets, buckles, pendants, necklaces, rings, and even amulets shaped like bugs, which were meant to offer protection. Some rulers were even buried with fans made of ivory and ostrich feathers to keep them cool in the afterlife. And it didn't stop there. Some tombs even included boats. For example, Pharaoh Khufu, the one who built the Great Pyramid of Giza, had a massive wooden ship buried near his pyramid. And although King Tut didn't get an actual boat, he was buried with several oars and 3 chariots, along with many ceremonial staffs made from precious materials. This might suggest that he preferred to travel over land rather than by water in the afterlife. One of the more interesting things found near some mummies was bottles of oils and perfumes. If these kings were going to stay stylish in the next world, they had to smell good too, right? Some tombs even contained ancient board games made of gold, ivory, or other valuable materials. One of the most popular games was called senet, which was kind of like a mix between backgammon and chess. It was a favorite pastime in ancient Egypt. Now, while the Egyptians have the most famous mummies in the world, they actually weren't the first civilization to practice mummification. That honor goes to the Chinchorro people of South America, who began mummifying their dead about 2,000 years before the Egyptians started their own rituals. Of course, we've learned a lot about these ancient rulers by studying their mummies, but until recently we had no idea what they actually looked like when they were alive. That all changed when archaeologists found something incredible: mummy portraits. These are incredibly detailed paintings of individuals, often made while they were still alive. They were usually painted on cloth and are known for their beauty and realism. In fact, researchers have even used them to diagnose diseases by comparing the artwork to the actual mummified bodies. Some portraits even show jewellery, which was later found on the mummies themselves, proving the portraits were accurate. A recent discovery of these mummy portraits in central Egypt was a major breakthrough, because it was the first time in over a century that such portraits were found. And mummies, it turns out, aren't just limited to Egypt. They've been found all over the world. In some places, natural conditions alone, like dryness or extreme cold, cause the bodies to mummify without any human intervention. Finally, I just want to thank you for listening and spending your time with us today. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please consider following our channel and checking out our future videos. And, don't forget to subscribe